Hi guys, Chahat here, connecting with you all from Team Leverage Edu. So I hope all of you are doing well, and thank you for tuning with us today. Most of you who have joined us today, are almost ready to go out for your education abroad, or are planning to do the same. So while SOPs, applications, visa, and everything else is mostly on your radar, one important point, that is accommodation, gets ignored sometimes. So today we have Mr. Rachit Juneja with us to guide you through the comprehensive problems and the best solutions for accommodations. So without further ado, let's address the elephant in the room, that is accommodations with studying abroad.
Thank you, Chad, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I hope you all are in good health and spirit. I'm Rachit. I primarily lead the platform service business for Leverage Edu. I've been with them almost since inception, have donned multiple hats for them. Prior to this, I've had a decade-long career with Bloom Ventures as well as KPMG. Uh, to begin, before Chahat idly bombards us with the questions, I would like to talk about the importance of accommodation in the student's life, I'll say. So it's a known and a proven fact that a student's living space directly impacts their academic performance. Uh, for example, you would not want to live in a very noisy neighborhood, right? So you'd want to make sure that you don't have a noisy neighborhood, so you're able to focus on your studies or on your academics, and similarly about cleanliness and organization as well. So a very well organized place can ideally save you a lot of time and can ideally allow you to focus on more important things at your hand. So guys, whenever you look for accommodation, I feel you need to make sure that you're not living in a noisy neighborhood until unless you really like that for yourself, and it needs to be clean and organized. So accommodation plays a very big role in your studying abroad.
Yeah. So I think all of us would agree with what you said, Rachit. We'd also like to know if and how important accommodations are for the students who are planning to secure their visas.
Chad, it won't be wrong to say that it is one of the most important things, most important part of us international education for students. However, it is extremely independent of student visa. Like for accommodation, visa and accommodation, there is some sort of interlinkage. I'll try to explain it further. For example, UK. While applying for the visa, you are asked where you will be staying, and they ask you whether you actually arranged for the accommodation or not. If you select yes, you have to fill in the details, the place. If it's a permanent accommodation, by permanent accommodation, I mean it's a long tenure accommodation. They ask you for the address. It's a university campus, on campus, off campus. In case you've chosen a B&B or a hotel for a temporary stay, then they will ask you the address of that as well. Otherwise, if you select no, they ideally ask your plans, how will you figure out your accommodation? Uh, and on the other side, when it comes to Canada, I'll say that's another place where a lot of students go to. Indian students face no such requirements uh, that they have to answer where they will be living, where they'll be staying. All they are required is to show whether they have the first year fee as well as enough money to support themselves for the first year, which ideally is in the form of GIC.
Yeah, so Rachit, how can the students switch to better accommodation if they're studying abroad and aren't satisfied with the current ones?
See, uh, See, there are some privately led accommodation players who are ready to provide accommodations for a month, for 2 months, for a few weeks. But those are all privately managed accommodations. So, in case you feel you're not really sure, you can book via them. You can book their properties. You can book via them. And then once you've made up your mind, once you have ideally visited those places by yourself, experienced the surroundings, you can look for another place, I'll say. And on the other side, if your property allows you to, in case you end up booking for a 44-week or a 51-week period, and you feel, no, I don't want to stay over here for XYZ reason, then it could be, I'll say, it could be some sort of subleasing to someone at a slightly cheaper rate and opting for a new property, but that entirely depends upon whose property is it and whether they ideally allow you to sublease it to someone or not.
So there's no shortage of options when it comes to student accommodation and the world of choices around there. Could you please shed some light on the same?
Chad, I agree to it as well as disagree, considering the current scenario. However, I'll just see when it comes to accommodation, there are ideally two types of accommodations. One is university campus, university provided accommodation. Second is a private players provided accommodation. In university, you have on campus. You always also have off campus. The difference between on campus and the off campus is it's within near the university within the campus that property is being managed by the university itself. And off campus means it's managed by the university, but it's outside the campus. And second, when I said private players, so there are in that also we have two categories. One is PBSH, which is a very renowned term in this industry, which is purposely built student housing. So those are the players who just provide properties ideally for students. So all the facilities are according to a student. And then there are other privately led, like there are other owners privately led accommodation properties where it's more like, okay, you go there and you take it on rent. So anyone, be it a student, be it any other visitor, can take it on rent. So those are type of properties which are ideally available. So when it comes to, I'll say, going a step back, when it comes to university hostels, I feel it's quite difficult to get and find a seat for yourself because they ideally serve on first come first serve basis, and I've also seen that slightly expensive in comparison to the private properties. Uh, and on the flip side, I feel living outside ideally can give you some sense of independence. You can adjust to the new culture. You can put efforts to like you'll be putting a lot of efforts to figure it out, which would ideally help you learn the like learn the new things there and adjust to that new country, I'll say. So I see the private accommodation players are ideal to go for. And over here, one thing which you ideally should look at is there are a lot of private players, this PBSH, which will include your electricity bill, your gas bill, your Wi-Fi. So that should also be considered while booking the accommodation, I'll say. And sorry, Charles, where I disagreed was primarily looking at the current scenario. There is some sort of shortage specifically in UK and other areas of Europe. However, if you book well in advance, you'll be able to solve that problem and figure out the right accommodation for yourself.
Yeah. So moving on, we'd also like to talk about the possibilities and the ways of sorting one's accommodation before flying out to study abroad.
Chad, now you've asked one of my favorite questions. I'll say that there we have someone like Leverage Edu comes into play. Uh, we have specific accommodation team over here who can help you with the right sort of, I'll say, finding the right sort of accommodation. Uh, so what we have done is we have tied up with multiple property owners, property managers abroad, and who will be able to help you figure out the best property at the best rate in the market. So that's where we come into play. You don't have to do much. You don't really have to haggle around. All you have to do is pick up, like, call us on our call Leverage Edu, I'll say, and we'll figure out the depending upon your requirement, how much your budget is, if you want to stay in the university, if you want all the amenities to be included or not. So we'll take care of I will basically note down all your requests, whatever you want, and accordingly figure out the best property for you. So that's one of the ways. Otherwise, obviously, there are a lot of other players in the market as well. However, I would recommend that you should not idly run from pole to pole, and idly let us do this while you concentrate on your study abroad application as well as visas.
So, talking about the cost, which is perhaps the most important decision that drives one to come and select their accommodations, we'd like to know about the intra and intercity variations. Like, could you please on the use of UK examples?
Chad, see, First of all, we need to understand, looking at the slightly shortage in supply, the prices have skyrocketed. If I compare it to last intake, it's almost like 18 to 20% the price have increased by 18 to 20%, I meant. So currently, if I look at it, London and the areas around London, it would be somewhere close to 1,000 to 1,200 pounds a month, which makes it again £250 and £300 a week. And when it comes to areas outside London, it's ideally somewhere close to 600 to 800 pounds a month. Again, 150 to 200 pounds a week. So London obviously is the most expensive city over there, and that's how the price varies. And also the rentals, as I mentioned earlier, it depends upon the type of amenities which are included in the rentals. Someone who's providing you, I'll say someone who's providing you all inclusive, like your electricity bill, your gas bill, your Wi-Fi, and your cleaning services. So obviously the rentals would be slightly higher over there, but in comparison to a person who's just given you a house and a bed to sleep on. So we always should ideally compare what all we are getting in that price. And my personal suggestion that if your electricity bill can be included in the property, please opt for that, because electricity bills are like are on this they're ever increasing in the entire Europe. So you need to really take care of that particular thing.
Yeah. So you also heard a lot about guarantors and property sponsors. Please shed some light on the same.
Chad, guarantors and sponsors is something which every student should know, right? While you're booking a property, specifically PBSH, I'll say, specifically PBSH, where you ideally end up booking for 41 to 54 weeks closely. 44 to 51 weeks, my bad, 44 to 51 weeks. What really happens is because you are a citizen of another country, so while you're booking up while you're booking a property outside, those people are slightly those people want to secure themselves, and they would want some sort of guarantor, considering you yourself are a student. So guarantor and sponsor are the people who guarantees in case you fail to pay the rent, that person would pay. So there are two type of guarantors, I'll say. One is your international guarantor, which can be your parent as well. By international, I mean the term international is being used as in the person who does not reside in UK and is not a UK citizen, and or Canadian citizen, I'll say. Similarly, the person can also be someone who's residing in UK and would be called as a local guarantor over there. So if you have a local guarantor, you can ideally get access to a lot more properties, at times even cheaper properties, because there are certain properties who would just want a local guarantor over there. And on the other hand, international guarantor is another. They require an international guarantor in every other PBSH sort of properties. Some private players who are not PBSH might opt for a guarantor-free accommodation, but that comes with its own pros and cons, I'll say. And also, just for everyone, I think that another question which people would have is, there are a lot of agencies in UK who ideally provide you these guarantor services. So they charge you an extra money for that, and they'll be able to provide you guarantor services like the local guarantor services, which can ideally be used in cases where student wants a specific accommodation, and he's flexible, he or she is flexible on the budget, and they don't want any other property, and it requires that guarantor, a local guarantor. So you can also use those guarantor services, and also called as sponsors, I'll say.
Yeah. So, wow, really, those were really quite some insights, and I'm pretty sure our audience loved it. With that, we have moved to the last section of today's session, which is answering all of our audience's questions. Please shoot whatever doubts you have. Till then, we will be answering the questions that we received on Instagram earlier this evening. So, the first question was how to use a block account.
Chad, if I'm not wrong, you meant block account for accommodation purposes?
Yes.
So ideally, block accounts. As I also manage the finance bit over here. The block account I'd ideally used for student living expenditure, like the students' living expenditure abroad. Uh, in Germany, we generally use the term block account. In Canada, we use the term GIC, which is a guaranteed investment certificate. Uh, these are the mediums to for the student to prove that they have sufficient finances for themselves to be able to live there, to be able to uh, uh, make sure that all the necessary expenses are taken care. So both Canadian and the like German government requires this. So for example, in Canada, you have to somewhere deposit 10,000, 150 odd CAD, 10,000 to 10,200 odd CAD, depending upon which bank you really opt for, and out of which 2,000 odd CAD is disbursed to you when you touch down the country, and the remaining money you get every month, like 650 to 700 CADs every month. On the other hand, when Germany, I believe it's somewhere close to 11,200 odd euros at the time of visa application. So you have to open up a block account. A lot of services, there are a lot of banks which help you open that account, and where you have to deposit this much money. And in Germany, then you get list 934 euro back in their account every month for your living expenditure. So these two, Germany and Canada both, I'll say. Like if you want to open a GIC account, or if you want to open this blocked account, please, we I believe Leverage Edu can also help them in opening them.
So, moving forward, the next question is what types of accommodation should the person choose?
Chad, I think I tried covering this question earlier as well. As I said, there are two types of accommodations, privately built as well as university managed. So it all depends upon your needs. So maybe your friends, if you want five people living together, you might opt for a PBSH, which who really gives you such sort of I'll say freedom, where you can ideally opt for five rooms together or three rooms together and share the rooms. And If you want to live close to the campus, you might opt for a on-campus. Uh, you might opt for a on-campus accommodation. However, I just feel before you book either of them, make sure you've read the terms and conditions. You know what is covered, and what kind of amenities are covered. If amenities are not covered, then maybe what extra expenditure you will be incurring. So it entirely depends upon the need. Some students prefer to stay close to the university. Some people are flexible in their budget, and they're okay with in staying slightly far. So depends upon the need of the student, depends upon the type of facilities the student is opting for. I believe these two type of accommodation can be like one of these two type of accommodation can be chosen from.
So, the next question is what all should the students check before settling into an accommodation?
Uh, Chad, this is an interesting question. I say, what all you should check before settling into accommodation. See, if you're moving out from a cozy home, please, first of all, guys, just be very clear. You're not moving. That would not be your old, like similar to your old home, and so you'll have to get out of your comfort zone and maybe build a new home there. I'll say. Uh, so since a lot of students are allotted university not allotted, I'll say, university residences. They have to search for student accommodations in their first year itself. So, what you should ideally check is, first of all, who you're living with. I think that's one of the most important thing to me, who you live with, who you share your flat with. And then if the distance is of great importance, you should ideally check the difference between the university and the accommodation where you'll be staying, or if not the distance, just maybe the connectivity to the tube, because you'll be using that a lot over there. How closer you are, how, like, what kind of access do you have to the public transport, uh, and then security of that area, which ideally I feel most of the places are pretty secured over there. And then you should look at the tenure of the agreement, I'll say. That is very important. For the January intake, ideally you get the agreement period from January to, I'll say, August, right? And because August is closer to the September intake, so a lot of these landlords, a lot of these student accommodation providing companies, they ideally renew that contract in August, and then maybe extend it to another 44 weeks or 51 weeks, depending upon the need of the tenant and depending on the need of the student over here. So that's another thing you should look at. What is the contract period, so that you are aware, okay, if my contract is getting expired within your academic period, you should have to renew it again. It cannot be, you should be extra careful over there. And then I'll say, again, as I said, amenities, as I mentioned earlier as well. Uh, so one thing, if your electricity bill is included, a lot of this PBSH ideally provides you to, ideally allow you to unlimited usage of heaters, considering it's very cold over there. It gets very cold at times. So you'll be using heaters there. So that's another, I'll say that's another advantage of booking with this purposely built student housing over there. And yeah, so those are the few things which you ideally should look at.
So, Rachit, we have just received a question from our YouTube viewer that there are already shortage of accommodations in UK and can't just book a property online without viewing it in person. So, what should you suggest for that?
I'm sorry, Chad, I did not get the last part, second part.
So,
There's a lot
what
of
would you
short, there's a lot
suggest
of,
for that?
there's already shortage, and then after that.
There's a lot of shortage for the accommodation, and you cannot just book a property by looking at it. So you have to go there physically and see, and then you will obviously book it. So the person want to know that what is the solution for that.
See, over here, when you there's a shortage, I agree. There's a shortage, I agree. But in like mid-November, there'll be new properties which will be coming out. Like I'll say, because a lot of these property owners are taking some time to figure out how much supply they have. So there'll be a new list of supply which will be available in next 5 to 6 days. So I believe that should sort out some sort of shortage. On the other side, there is when you talk about, you want to look at the properties before you booking. I agree. You Everyone wants to look at the surroundings, everyone wants to look at the rooms. So as I said, while Leverage Edu, we are helping you guys book it, we share the pictures, we share the videos of the properties, where we share how your room looks like, what sort of people are already living there, or it's a completely vacant property. So that gives you a feeler of the property. How far is it, what sort of amenities, gated, non-gated, uh, everything we try to provide you the information. And on the other side, as I said, if you are still not sure, it's always better to book for a shorter period. It's always better to book for a shorter period. There are some private players who provide you with this shorter period agreements, like a month or two, and then maybe you can ideally jump onto a property which you like the most.
Yeah. So the next question, and I think the last question for today is: does student loan includes the cost of living?
Definitely, Chahat. Living expenses abroad are all included in the education loan schemes. Most of these NBFCs and banks who provide education loan, they ideally cover your cost of education. So by cost of education, which is also called as COE, is covers your tuition fee as well as your living expenses. And under living expenses, your accommodation, like your rentals, are also covered. And this is I'll say, before the visa process starts, students have to make sure that they fulfill all the conditions of their education loan, and ensure that the entire cost of living forms part of it. So yeah, but yeah, to come back to the original question, the entire your cost of living is a part of the student loan.
Good to know. So thank you, Rachit, for your time, and thank you for answering all the queries of our precious students and everyone who wanted to know more about the accommodations. Thank you for joining the live. And I would also like to extend thanks to all the viewers who joined today for and asked their queries so that we were more helpful. And you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And also, you can call us on 1-800-572-000, and you can contact with our counselors directly. We have a link, we have a form link in the bio, so you can go there and fill out the form for your registrations.
Awesome. Thank you, Chahat, for having me. Thank you, Chahat, for having me. And thank you, everyone. In case you still have any other questions which might pop up in your head post this session, please feel free to reach out to us, maybe by filling the form, or maybe calling us on our, as Chahat mentioned, 1-800-572-000. or maybe reaching out to us on our Instagram or Facebook. Happy to answer, happy to help you out, figure out the best accommodation. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chahat.